I'd also like to take a moment to give a brief shout out to Punch Perfect Boxing, who has had some spectacular breakdowns. He is just an absolute boss when it comes to breaking down some of these fights from Japan.
And we are live. How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the Punch Perfect Boxing channel. Today, I'm going to be doing my Punch Perfect preview and prediction for ZURDO Ramirez defending his unified cruiserweight crown against former world champion YUNIEL Dorticos. This is the fight this week that I'm looking forward to the most. ZURDO has really gone up in my estimation since he moved up to cruiserweight, and Dorticos is someone that's always been a favourite of mine. The KO doctor, big puncher, who's provided some big knockouts over the years, been involved in some of my favourite cruiserweight fights, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how this fight plays out, because if we get a good version of Dorticos, it could be a very interesting one. If we're getting the version that has been a little bit inactive, a little bit past his best, then maybe this isn't as interesting as I'm making out currently. So it could be quite a routine win for ZURDO, but if we're getting a good version of Dorticos, it could also become a very interesting fight quite quickly. So really looking forward to this one. There's a lot.
Studio microphone. Quick shout out to Punch Perfect Boxing. His breakdowns are absolutely top tier. The way he covers those Japanese fights is just on another level. Truly one of the best.
We'll cover it. I will be doing videos for the return of Deontay Wilder as he returns on Friday night. You've got Floyd Schofield versus Tevin Farmer on this card, which is interesting. A good cruiserweight fight between Mikhail Cieślak and John Pascal, which I'll be covering as well. So plenty of prediction videos coming this week. But if there's any more, or if you want me to cover Paul versus Chavez, then let me know in the comment section. But back to the video today, and the fight that I think is the best this weekend is between ZURDO and Dorticos. And we'll start off by talking about YUNIEL Dorticos, because he's been around for an awfully long time, going back to his amateur days where he was mixing it with some of the very best on the planet, but also kind of unfortunate that the Cuban team was so damn good around that time. You know, the guy that he was vying for a sort of world championship and Olympic spot.
Studio microphone. Quick shout out to Punch Perfect Boxing. His breakdowns are absolutely top tier. The way he covers those Japanese fights is just on another level. Truly one of the best at what he does.
Joshua in the London 2012 Olympics, mixed it with the likes of Artur Beterbiev as well. Actually got stopped against Beterbiev on cuts, which was very rare back in those days because of the head guards and stuff, which was supposed to protect against that. But it was a very good amateur, and when he turned over, it was obviously a difficult decision for him. It may be a little bit of an easier decision than perhaps we realised for some of these fighters. It was made easier by the fact that at the time, a lot of fighters were defecting from Cuba. You had Guillermo Rigondeaux, Yordenis Ugas, Mike Perez, Luis Ortiz, Yuriorkis Gamboa. There were a lot of fighters around that time that were defecting. Arizlandi Lara as well. So it was probably a bit of an easier decision because there was an influx of fighters doing it from Cuba at the time. But it's always a difficult decision because there's kind of no going back once you make that decision. So he turned pro, managed to get away from Cuba and focus on his professional career. And he lived up to the KO Doctor moniker. He was knocking everybody out. The first time that he was taking the distance was by a fighter that you would expect to take in the distance in Edison Miranda, who was just he was the ultimate gatekeeper. Edison Miranda, he was difficult, he was awkward, obviously applied his trade at light heavyweight as well. Just a really awkward customer, and he was the first fighter to take Dorticos the distance. And from there, it was about manoeuvring himself into a position for the world title. So he ended up winning the interim WBA title, then fought for the regular belt against a hard-hitting Russian Dmitry Kudryashov in a fight that was just, I remember at the time, I think I maybe
Studio microphone. Quick shout out to Punch Perfect Boxing. His breakdowns are absolutely top tier. The way he covers those Japanese fights is just on another level. Truly one of
the fight to not last 6 rounds. It was in the quarterfinals of the World Boxing Super Series, and when we got that matchup of all the fights that could have been made in that tournament, that was the one where we were really licking our lips because you just knew you were going to get a knockout. The combined KO ratio between them was stupid. Both absolutely monstrous punchers, and it was Dorticos who prevailed. He caught him early, stopped him in the second round, caught Kudryashov with a massive shot and just put him away nice and early, and from there progressed into the semi-finals. In the other semi-final, you had that incredible fight between Alexander Usyk and Marius Bradis, but in his semi-final, he took on Murat Gassiev, another monstrous puncher from Russia. Gassiev was unbeaten at the time. He was the full world champion, and Murat Gassiev was a brilliant fighter at that point. And I think it's a shame, really, kind of not to go off on a tangent, but how Gassiev's career's gone, because he got schooled by Usyk in the final and then moved up to heavyweight, had injuries, inactivity, put too much on his body, I think, personally, and has just never really been the same fighter. And it's really disappointing because this version that Dorticus got in the semi-final of the World Boxing Super Series and the version that Usyk beat was an elite cruiserweight, one of the all-time cruiserweights. And it was an amazing fight, one of my favourite cruiserweight fights of all time. And cruiserweights produce so many great fights, so many underrated fights, and they're not always with the biggest names, maybe not names that you're familiar with. There's been so many good underrated fights in the cruiserweight division, and this is...
Studio microphone. Quick shout out to Punch Perfect Boxing. His breakdowns are absolutely top tier. The way he covers those Japanese fights is just on another level. Truly one of the best at what he does. Studio microphone. Quick shout out to Punch Perfect Boxing. His breakdowns are absolutely top tier.
Round and getting rid of Dorticus. And it was a shame for Dorticus because obviously it meant that if he'd have won that fight, he would have gone through to the final against Usyk or against Bradis. It was obviously Usyk that prevailed. But ultimately, Gassiev managed to outbox Dorticus and then managed to hurt him and put him away as well in the final round. It was a wonderful fight, though. So Dorticus was out. It was Gassiev that progressed to take on Usyk. Obviously, Usyk ends up winning the World Boxing Super Series. But because that tournament was so damn good, they decided we need another World Boxing Super Series at the cruiserweight division, and Dorticus got invited straight back into that, as did Marius Bradis. And Dorticus rebounded with a couple of solid victories. He got taken the distance for the first time since Miranda against Mateus Masternak. Again, just another guy that's completely renowned for just being durable, a difficult night's work. And Dorticus managed to kind of get through that first hurdle in the World Boxing Super Series. Then went in against Andrew Tabiti, who we were sort of 50-50 on. He'd worked with the Mayweather team. He was training in Mayweather's gym. Obviously an American with a decent style, was a decent enough amateur. We'd seen a lot of sparring footage where he equipped himself quite nicely as well to beat him. We kind of didn't know whether the talent was going to kind of translate on the night against Dorticus. And he was just completely scared of the power, to be honest with you. The first few rounds were really tentative. He didn't want to engage. And I kind of get it. Dorticus is such a monstrous puncher. You can outbox Dorticus, as Gassiev showed, as someone that was maybe physically, didn't quite have some of the advantages over Dorticus that would kind of contribute to him being able to.
Studio microphone. Quick shout out to Punch Perfect Boxing. His breakdowns are absolutely top tier. The way he covers those Japanese fights is just on another level. Truly one of the best at what he does. Studio microphone. Quick shout out to Punch Perfect Boxing. His breakdowns are absolutely top tier. The way he covers those Japanese fights is just on another level. Truly one of the best at what he does. Studio microphone. Quick shout out to Punch Perfect Boxing. His breakdowns are absolutely top tier. The way he covers those Japanese fights is just on another level. Truly one of the best at what he does. Studio microphone. Quick shout out to Punch Perfect Boxing. His breakdowns are absolutely top tier. The way he covers those Japanese fights is just on another level. Truly one of the best at what he does. Studio microphone. Quick shout out to Punch Perfect Boxing. His breakdowns are absolutely top tier.
Taken on Dubois again. And none of them, in my opinion, have pushed Usyk quite like Bradis did. So Bradis progressed to the final against Dorticus, one of those what-if matchups from the first series. And I expected a really good fight. I in my prediction, picked Marius Bradis to win the fight. And that's what we got. We got a masterclass. You look at the scores and you look at the verdict, and if you don't watch the fight, you maybe think, oh, that was close. He pushed Marius Bradis, who's a great cruiserweight. That's impressive. If you watch the fight, it was one of the performances of the year from Bradis. He was absolutely brilliant. And it wasn't a typical Bradis performance. He wasn't aggressive. He wasn't, being a bruiser or roughhousing. He was on the back foot, picking off Dorticus, which is the way to beat him. And it was a masterful, wonderful display from Bradis. And I think the scorecards, I think it was ruled a majority decision, but it really shouldn't have been. It should have been a wide unanimous decision. Dorticus just could never time his shots right. He was getting picked off by Bradis, who, in my opinion, gave the best performance of his career in a winning fight. I think in losing fights, his performances against Opataya, his performances against Usyk were really high level, but I think where he actually got the victory, that performance against Dorticus was pretty special, one of the great all-time cruiserweight performances. So, Dorticus has been kind of unfortunate that he's been a world champion. He's got some solid wins on the resume, but he's also come up short against some all-time cruiserweights in Murat